Today we will talk of John Keats and his Odes. Before we speak of John Keats, we should remember that he died at the age of 25. So whatever work he has done and the immortal poet that he is, all that he achieved before the age of 25. Due to tuberculosis, it was incurable during those days, and he could live only up to 25 from 1795 to 1821. Keeping this fact in mind, when we look at the work of John Keats and the artistic heights that he achieved, we are simply stunned. It's stunning. The feat that he achieved, the artistic limits that he achieved are simply amazing. He is especially remembered for his odes. Ode, as we know, is a poem of praise. It addresses an object, a person, a thought, an idea, and it analyzes that thing in detail. It's a very profound kind of a poem, neither too long nor too short, longer than the lyric, and of course shorter than the narrative. And it's a form of poetry John Keats mastered. Now the question arises as to what is there in John Keats, what is there that we consider him to be the best poet of odes. The first thing is that he is able to evoke imagery. He is very sensual. As we read his poems, our senses are tickled. It's not an easy thing to create imagery through words, to create imagery to an extent where your senses are affected. For example, when he's talking of autumn, he chose to write an ode to autumn. He said that everybody writes about spring and I will write about autumn. And then he talks of juicy fruits, the sweet kernel, flowers, breeze, and sun is everywhere. The wind is winnowing, there is husk, there is broke, and there is so much fruit, you see, apple and oranges, that it has to, there is a cider press in the farm itself, and the juice is coming out, oozing drop by drop, you see. So as we read the poem, the taste of fruits comes on our tongues. Each time I read Ode to Autumn, I feel like eating fruits. It is as though I have eaten a slice of apple, I've eaten oranges. The tongue tastes the fruits. So that is the beauty, that is the power of John Keats's words. And he says that everybody talks of spring. Where is spring? Yeah, where is spring? Where are the joys of spring? I will sing the joys of autumn. So that is that power. We may try and we may look, but there are not enough poets who are able to tickle your senses in an aesthetic manner, in an artistic manner. So that power goes to John Keats. Then he studied Greek classics, and his sense of beauty was highly artistic. He was a romantic poet. He was in the tradition of freedom. He was in the tradition of talking about liberty, nature, beauty, matters of art. Still, his sense of aesthetics was highly inspired by the Greek. So here we have a romantic poet who is equally inspired by classical standards. So that again, that juxtaposition, that bringing of the two opposites is again a mark of John Keats's greatness. Binaries. All his poems have tremendous binaries. Binary where two opposite things run together. This is the nature of life. You see, life is not one-sided. Art is a reflection of life. Art is an artistic imitation of life. So, in all the poems of John Keats, especially his odes, you will see binaries running. For example, Ode to Nightingale, his best known poem, his best remembered for Ode to Nightingale. And we are all carried, you see, up in the sky with the nightingale. So on one hand, we have heart, pain, hemlock, intoxication, and Lethe. Lethe is the river that we meet after death, Vaitarini. Lethe, and forgetfulness and drunken state, and bird and melody and song and mirth. So on one hand we have all these things, you see, breezy things and happy things and things which take us up in the sky. And on the other hand, in the same poem we have weariness, fever, fret, palsy, grey hair, pale faces, thin faces, death, sorrow, simultaneously running. In each line of the poem, if you analyze Ode to Nightingale, you will realize it is not an ordinary poem. It is not an ordinary poem at all. Two opposite ideas, binaries, run through the poem all through. That is what strikes us. That is what touches our unconscious mind. That is where John Keats as a poem stands tall. That is one factor when we appreciate the odes of John Keats. Then artistic beauty. I mean, what is artistic beauty after all? We talk so much of poetic beauty, artistic beauty. What is it? And I am reminded of a book, The Tao of Physics by Fritz of Capra. Everyone should read it. And there the author says that quantum physics and poetry are the same. He says that at the end, quantum physics is all about particles and suggestions of waves, and it is a balance between opposites. एक ताना बाना है. Life at the end, life in the minutest detail, if we go, is just a fabric. It's a balance between opposites. It's a balance between several forces, so to say. And this is what poetry is. Capra says there that this is what poetry teaches us. John Keats's poem, I find, that reflect this beauty the best. I personally feel that as far as romantic beauty, as far as depth of thought is concerned, as far as artistic beauty is concerned, as far as craftsmanship, the poetic craftsmanship is concerned, there is no parallel to John Keats. So that is what really touches us. Then he has this very strong sense of recognizing the unrecognized. He says that everybody talks of big gods, I will talk of Psyche. Everybody talks of spring, I will talk of autumn. Everybody talks of peacock and this and that, I will talk of nightingale. So this, you see, this is again a very touching factor, that he has this zest to recognize the unrecognized. John Keats's poetry stands for all that poetry is. What is poetry? Poetry is sensitivity, poetry is truth, poetry is genuineness, poetry is, beauty. Poetry is all about heart. What is not poetry? Ego is not poetry. Bloating is not poetry. Selfishness is not poetry. Letting others down is not poetry. You see, brazenness is not poetry. So, reading the poems of John Keats, you get an idea as to what poetry is. If we want to enjoy the essence of poetry, we should read and relish each line, relish each word that John Keats has written. This is his greatness. His greatness as a poet is very elusive. Not many people are able to understand as to why he appeals so much. And he did not get much recognition during his lifetime. It is only after his death people realized that he was almost a perfect poet. So that is about John Keats. This is today's class. We will continue our discussion. Thank you.